Hi everyone, and thanks for joining today's What's New with AdExchange policy training. I'm Asha Balendra, your AdX trainer for today. I also have three policy specialists on the call with me today. That's Kimberly, Elizabeth, and Andrea, who will be on hand to take any specific policy questions that you may have. So here's what we have on the agenda for today. First, we'll be giving you a short policy crash course for anyone new to AdExchange. Then we'll be moving on to review the ad review process, and then we'll be going on to the main bulk of today's training, which is covering the new and recent latest policy updates. After that, we'll be going through a buyer audit case study, and then we'll be also covering some tools and tips to help you with creative approval. And as always, at the end, we'll be taking live Q&A, and to submit your questions to us, you can do so via the Q&A panel towards the left-hand side of your screen. So if you click the Q&A box on the left-hand navigation, it should pop up with a new screen where you're able to type in your questions. So let's start with a quick policy refresh. The reason why we have policies on the AdExchange is because we strive to keep the AdExchange clean and safe for buyers and publishers. So there are four general types of policies. The first bucket there is content and creatives, and these policies describe what types of products you can or can't advertise on AdExchange, general specification requirements for your ad creatives, and website user experience requirements. The second bucket is third-party ad serving and data, and these policies note which technologies you are allowed to use and what you need to declare to us, and what type of data you're allowed to collect. The third one there is buyer participation policies, and they go over what type of companies buy on the AdExchange. And lastly, the behavioral policies describe which internet-based advertisements, including remarketing, you can and can't use for targeting and collection. So when do these policies actually come into play? Let's take a quick look at the ad review process on AdX. So the reason why we have the ad review process in place is to create a high quality, safe premium network of publisher content, create a better user experience, and also to protect the user. So as you can see, we start off with step one, when you as the buyer submits an ad via the REST API or via hosted bidding. Then we move on to step two, when the ad review, the ad goes through a series of automatic and manual ad reviews, detecting violations such as malware, broken URLs, incorrect destination URLs, SSL, and so on. And we'll be going through what each of them means later on. And step three, lastly, either the ads are approved and served, or your ads disapproved, and then you can resubmit them after an edit or a fix has been made. So a couple of things to note here. Some things, such as paused ads, do not go into review. So if you have an ad campaign that you want to go live, say in about 5 days' time, it's best to activate those ads and get them reviewed in order to run on time. Also, it's worth noting, if you edit an ad creative, it will go into review again. Therefore, if you had an ad creative running and then you edit that ad creative, keep in mind it will have to go down in order to get re-reviewed and approved. And if you are a UI buyer using hosted bidding, the ad will be labeled approved or disapproved in your account. For disapproved ads, you'll get an email notification if you have it enabled in your account. And you can control who receives these notifications in your My Account tab of your account. If you're an RTB buyer, you'll be able to see the disapproved ads in either RTB Breakout, Creative Explorer, or Creative REST API. So we'll be talking about those tools later on in today's training. So now, let's dive deep into the general buckets of policies, and for each of them, let's go over the most frequent violations we're seeing for each of them. So the first key section we'll be going over is content and creative policies. So one thing you'll notice as a theme throughout policies is that we take many of them from AdWords. And so a bit of background, when we merged the two systems, that's the Google Display Network, or sometimes known as GDN, and DoubleClick AdExchange, we inherited many of the AdWords policies for buying on publisher partner sites. As a buyer on AdExchange, you have access to AdExchange publisher sites as well as AdSense publisher sites. So in the first section, in content and creatives, these are around product policies. So these policies dictate what you can and can't advertise on AdX. So if you are unfamiliar with AdWords, note that AdWords products are classified as family safe, non-family safe, or adult. In addition to the above policies, AdExchange has the following policy on family safe status. So Google assigns a family status to all ads to make sure that ads are shown to an appropriate audience. Products that are considered to be non-family safe and have that status cannot currently be run on the ad exchange. So therefore, we disallow all non-family safe ads. And examples of these can be abortion, tobacco, weapons, or politics, for example. And it's worth noting we recently opened up alcohol ads, so we'll be covering that in the new policy section of the training. The next area within content and creative policies are general ad specifications, and these are simply technical requirements that your ads must comply with. So just like product policies, we inherit these from AdWords guidelines for image and video ads. And lastly, website user experience. So this is another big part for our content policies. And it is basically when a user lands on a website, what kind of experience that website provides. We want to make sure that it's not a suspicious site that's trying to take user information, install something on their computer, or show 10 million pop-up ads before they can leave the site. We have two technical requirements. The first is related to the landing page and making sure it loads in a timely manner, and the second is landing page quality. So for landing page quality, we use a threefold criteria to evaluate it. One is relevance and original content. So you want to make sure your site does not copy text from other sites. Number two, transparency and trustworthiness. So if a user enters information like an email address or a phone number, it has to be clear what information is going to be used for. And trustworthiness basically includes openly sharing information about your business and clearly states what your business does. And then the last criteria for landing page quality is ease of navigation. So ensuring that you provide users with a smooth and seamless path to navigate through your website, for example, designing clear navigational buttons. So here we present a sample of content policies that are most violated on AdExchange in the past 180 days. So the first one is called proper URL declaration. And if you're using tools such as, RTB Breakout or Creative REST API, you'll see these reasons as disapproval reasons. And the policy for proper URL declaration is that the ad you serve to the page must lead to the URL that you declared in the ad. The main reason is publishers may need to block certain URLs or ads from their site. And if an advertiser does not declare this properly, it can violate the publisher's rules. Therefore, whenever you create an ad in our system, submit an ad tag or respond to a bid request, make sure you define the destination URL properly so publishers and Google know where the ad is leading to. The second violation listed here is gambling or farm ads. And these are both unaccepted to run as they have a restricted content status. Basically, the reason for this is that products that are considered to have restricted content are not permitted to run on the ad exchange. The third most frequently violent content policy is serving a blank third-party ads serving creative. So the policy states here that each trafficked ad must contain a creative. Rendering blank ads is not acceptable. And the reason for this policy is because publishers do not like seeing blank ads on their site, and additionally we can't make a call on additional content violations if we have no content to view. And lastly, we have site not crawlable. So the ad is disapproved because the declared click-through URL leads to a landing page that couldn't be crawled. We're going to dive into that use case actually. Because it's one of the top disapproval reasons, here are some tips to go about troubleshooting if you have a disapproved creative for URL not crawlable. So again, what is it? The ad is disapproved because the declared click-through URL leads to a landing page that could not be crawled. Common crawl errors include robots.txt failures, DNS errors, or server errors. And you'll see later, this is the second disapproval reason on the ad exchange in the past 180 days. The reason for this disapproval reason is because the landing page for all ads on the ad exchange must be crawlable. This is because AdX uses Google crawlers to read and ensure that all landing pages comply with ad exchange policies. And we have some tips to troubleshoot this. So firstly, to allow Google crawler on your page, you can add a user agent like adsbot Google to your domain's robots.txt file. And you can also use Google Webmaster Tools to see how to make your pages accessible to Google. And if your ad is disapproved because the landing page is not crawlable, you can correct it by ensuring the Google bots can crawl your site. And all you have to do is simply resubmit your ad after that. Okay, so that was content and creative policies. We're now going on to the second bucket of policies, which is data and third-party ad serving. So with these, we're trying to keep publishers assured that AdX is a regulated environment and give buyers access to leverage different tools. We also try to protect the end users because we have a large responsibility to the users to make sure they're not exposed to technologies that might compromise their browsing safety. So the difference between AdWords and AdExchange is that AdX gives you access to inventory, typically using your in-house server if you have one, or it allows you to access via a certified third-party ad server that you're using. In working with IAB, as all major network partners and technology providers do, we want all ad servers to be compliant with the best industry standards. So we like to be confident that if a user wishes to opt out of a specific ad server or technology, they have the information and ability to opt out. As an ad exchange, we encourage transparency from both our buyers and sellers. So we give sellers the insight into the technology being used by our various buyers. Thus, we expect the buyers to be transparent about using certain technology. So that's why we put a lot of emphasis on declaration. Just like with publishers, we require them to be very clear about the nature of the content they're putting on the ad exchange for you to bid on. Moving on to our most frequent violations in this category, here's a sample of the most commonly violated third-party ad serving and data policies. The first one notes that all third and fourth party calls must be declared. This includes redirects or server-to-server callouts. And redirects or callouts to any technology, including ad servers, rich media servers, tracking technologies, or verification technologies. In terms of fourth-party calls, this is probably one of the biggest complaints from publishers. Vendors need to be specific because publishers need transparency on the ad exchange. So they should be declared when serving an ad. And also, we hope to keep as much publisher inventory available to buyers by just making sure that if there are particular reasons for a publisher not wishing to return a certain technology, we provide it as an opt-out. This also means that you're not wasting time trying to bid on things that you'll never win because of a typical technology you might be using, for example. The second policy here states flash cookies and other locally shared objects, or LSOs, are not allowed on the ad exchange. So an example of why we don't use it, for example, a flash banner is served that sets a LSO file. The banner writes data about the page the user was on, the products displayed in the banner, and makes a backup of the user's web cookie data. So users can't easily or transparently block the LSO objects, and it's against Google policies to gather ad serving data from an ad impression. The third policy there that's frequently violated is malware. So this is really straightforward, and it's not accepted or tolerated within any Google product, including ad exchange. So Google verifies any creatives directly uploaded into AdX or follows the third-party redirect for malware or viruses through proprietary systems. Malware violations are not accepted at any time. And we'll also be covering the enforcement of it. And lastly, the fourth one on the list is click macros. And this is required because we want to make sure we're providing the safest environment. And so we have a requirement that you keep track of clicks in ad exchange. So you might be tracking clicks on your third-party system, that's fine, but we also ask that you pass the click event to AdX as well. The reason for this is that we are using this as a signal to detect fraud outside of AdX or malicious usage of ad exchange. And another one here that's not on the list, it's not a top violation, but it is creeping up, and it's called cloaking. And this is where a website changes its content depending on the client, primarily used to show a crawler, like a different page or a video than a normal client, and sometimes with malicious content. Okay, so moving on to the third general bucket for policies, we're going to be going over buyer participation, and these describe who can buy on the ad exchange. So in terms of buyer participation, also known as our sub-syndication policy, the reason behind this policy is to create transparency between publishers and buyers. So this policy allows publishers to see who is buying an impression. We are working with several DSP partners to make sure there is a direct seat for everyone buying on the ad exchange. It's fine that buyers are connecting with the DSP, but we just want to provide that second level of transparency so that underneath the DSP, it is transparent which buyer is accessing the network. Another great reason for doing this is that many of the non-auction features like preferred deals or private auctions can work directly with the buyer's account. So it's a great advantage for you to have your own account. Then you can transact directly using preferred deals and private auctions as well. And the last main reason for this policy is risk mitigation. So if everything is contained in one giant account and that account got suspended, it will impact all advertisers in that account. So if buyers have their individual accounts, then one advertiser or one account will be impacted and not every single advertiser in that account. And the last section we're going to be going over is behavioural policies, including interest-based advertising and remarketing. So the policy here is pretty straightforward. You must not use Google platform products to select or target interest-based advertisements or to collect or use audience data such as cookie lists. So we have a couple of things that are flagged in this area. So you're basically not allowed to include any racial or ethnic information, religion or religious beliefs, political affiliation, and a couple more there. And so firstly, a huge reminder, if you are using remarketing, that means if you're setting up a remarketing campaign and placing the AdX remarketing tag on your site, you need to comply with our interest-based advertising policy. And this includes correctly declaring your use of remarketing in your own privacy policies. And as you can see on the screen, there are certain types of ads that must not use any form of remarketing. And here are some common examples of sensitive categories that you must not use as a remarketing or targeting method. So this means both Google's remarketing product and third-party remarketing technologies. And if you have any doubts, please do contact your solution consultant or account manager, as continued violations can result in account suspension. And the other thing to call out is another thing. When you're actually naming the user lists, please be sure to abide by the same rules. So we've had a couple of user list names that have just stopped the whole user list running because of just the title itself. So we've provided a few examples there. Okay, so moving on to this month's new policy updates. We're going to start off with alcohol ads. And so what's changing? So we're basically going to be removing the whitelisting and certification step for bidders to be eligible to receive bid requests for alcohol eligible impressions. So what does that actually mean? That means any bidder will be eligible to receive bid requests for alcohol eligible impressions. And all you need to do is correctly respond to an alcohol eligible impression by declaring your use of an alcohol creative in the bid response. And you can use the restricted category number 33 for alcohol. So once you've updated this, then you are able to buy and run alcohol campaigns. And to get started today, because we have over 200 premium publisher sites that have already been enabled to run alcohol ads. So basically take advantage of the seasonal opportunities, activate budgets with your alcohol advertisers. Okay, so the next policy update I wanted to go through is the fact that we're deprecating the use of Flash. So if you remember, over the last year, we've rolled out tools to encourage advertisers to build in HTML5. And this is because basically to give you the ability to reach the widest possible audience across screens. So to enhance the browsing experience for more people across more sites, we at Google are now going to be going 100% HTML5. And so just to share with you the timelines on that. So if you remember in September last year, in one of our new feature trainings, we trained buyers on Chrome plugin Power Saver to reduce power consumption and increase page load speeds. So that was just sort of one milestone into the whole move to HTML5. So we have a couple of more timelines to share with you. So the one in June 2016 of this year, this doesn't concern AdX, but basically Flash ads can no longer be uploaded in DCM, that's Double-Click Campaign Manager, or DBM, or AdWords. So the one that does concern us is in January of 2017, Flash ads no longer will be allowed on AdX, as well as the other three, so DCM, DBM, and GDM. It's important to update your ads to HTML5 before these dates. Advertisers who currently use display ads built in Flash in their campaigns have several easy ways to navigate the transition, ensuring your creatives continue to reach people successfully. And we'll be sharing tools just in a second. So when January the 2nd comes in 2017, any bid responses that include a flash ad will be filtered out of auction, and this is just for display impressions. AdExchange will not allow a flash creative with a flashless backup creative like we do now, although video ads built in Flash will not be impacted on this date. So yeah, just wanted to share a couple of those dates so you can get prepared. And we have a couple of solutions and tools to help with the transition. So you can access this later on when the materials are distributed, but you can convert your existing creatives into HTML5 using some tools listed here. And we also have a lot of training material as well. So we have HTML5 certifications, Google Web Designer training programs as well. So we'll be sending that out after the training. Okay, moving on to deals policy update. So what's changing? So today, many content policies, which we went through earlier, are specific to open auction. So now we're going to make it easier for AdX buyers and publishers to transact and create deals. So for preferred deals, we're removing those restrictions so that you can transact much more easily. So content restrictions shouldn't apply for preferred deals. We'll obviously restrict some policies, like some of the platform policies, including no malware, no self-clicking ads, and a couple more. But essentially, the policy decisions are based on the buyer and seller agreement, not Google. So most of the AdX content policies should not apply here. And this policy should be coming into place towards the end of the month. So look out for that one. And the last policy update is Nielsen DAR with viewability using IAS. So now you can use Nielsen DAR JavaScript with viewability and IAS functionality on third-party AdX publisher inventory, where the publisher has opted into allowing this as vendors on their inventory. In support of objective third-party validation and measurement, AdExchange have enabled the additional support for Nielsen digital ad ratings, formerly known as OCR, online campaign ratings. And with this, so AdX buyers are allowed to use the image version of the digital ad ratings tag on display and video inventory on AdExchange, including GDN inventory and third-party AdX publisher inventory, where the publisher has opted in. You're also allowed to use the JavaScript version of the digital ad ratings tag, where publishers have opted into this on their inventory. And the version of the Nielsen digital ads rating JavaScript product that includes the integral ad science viewability functionality is now also supported on third-party AdX publisher inventory. In order to successfully implement digital ad ratings, we have a really good guideline into successful implementation of it, but just a few tips. You should declare vendor ID 551 in your bid response if you're using the Nielsen DAR image tag with an empty HTTP referrer. And secondly, you should declare the vendor ID 615 in your bid response if you're using either the Nielsen digital ad ratings image tag with a non-empty HTTP referrer or the JavaScript tag. And one thing worth noting here also, always use an SSL compliant version of the pixel. And if you want to receive that full implementation best practices, then please do reach out to your account manager. Okay, so moving on to the buyer audit case study. So what we've been seeing recently since we've rolled out these proactive buyer audits is that buyers win, on average, 65% more impressions just 1 month after an AdX health check. So exciting stat, so let's learn more about it. The reason for these health checks is so that you basically don't get your account suspended, and these health checks are basically triggered on certain violations. And there are serious violations like these ones listed here that carry out a more severe enforcement, and then there are the other ones that we went through earlier. You'll probably be receiving a proactive health check if you're frequently violating these types of violations, such as flash cookies, invalid full-party calls, video cloaking, malware, and so on. So just to fill you in on one case study that we saw in August, So these are proactive audits that the policy team carry out. And to jump into a case study that we saw in August, a buyer was flagged for having a high badness score. So this is what the metric we're using to measure the health check of an account. And it was primarily associated with an invalid fourth-party call, disapprovals. And they were flagged with a number of 2. And for context, the average badness is 0.1, and any badness above 1.9 is significantly bad. So this one was flagged at 2. As you can see, in August, the account was flagged for having a significant number of policy violations. After the proactive policy violation notifications from the policy team, the buyer account had significantly fewer policy violations. And as you can see from the graph, this has an indirect correlation with the number of impressions won by the account. So you can see that most ads were able to run without issue afterwards, which led to the account winning more impressions than before the policy notification. And just, a couple of numbers. So in terms of auction impressions from when the account was flagged in August, it went from 1,051, and then it went up to 2 million, 9.3 million, 64, and then 72 million. And then simultaneously, the badness score decreased. So we flagged it at 2, and then it went down to 0.4, then minus 0.3, and back at 0.3. So you can see that once the health check messages were taken into consideration, the account started winning more impressions. So that brings us to a couple of reasons why you would get these notifications. So recent from the past for Q1, these are the top disapproval reasons on AdX. So you can see number 1, bad destination URL, site not crawlable. So that was the use case that we went through earlier, and we gave you troubleshooting steps on how to prevent that in future. And then a couple other ones, invalid protocol, gambling ads on the open auction, landing page quality, media not fully functional. So those were the top ones, and then the rest, incorrect destination URL, clarity and relevance, undeclared restricted content, invalid full particle, and broken URL. So just to note here, each disapproval reason are obviously different according to each buyer, but this is basically on average, but we do work individually with buyers to resolve these. Okay, so now that we've talked about the AdX policies and enforcement processes, let's review the available tools that you can use to help get your ad creatives approved by AdX using some frequently asked questions from our buyers. So one of the questions we get asked quite a lot is, how do I check the status of my creative and resubmit any that have been disapproved? So you can check your creative status using Creative Explorer, and this is found when you log into AdX on the bidding tab, and then on the left-hand nav you can navigate to Creative Explorer. And this will show you a list of all your buyer creative IDs and the status, whether it's approved or disapproved, and it will also give you the reason as well. So you can see here the destination URL is not crawlable. You can also use our filters to filter for categories. So if you've got a lot of buyer creative IDs there, you can just filter it to show the ones that you want. And then you can click into a buyer creative ID and see more details. So view creative status at a detailed creative level. The other tool that you can use is RTB Breakout, and using this tool you can see all the reasons why bids were filtered, and you can see why they were filtered out of auction, and then you can also filter by creative ID, preferred deal, private auctions to better understand your performance. So this basically identifies clear blockers to your successful bidding, and then you can implement changes and then revisit this tool again to see how that changed and impacted your performance. And for the resubmitting of the creative, you can use the Creative REST API. So basically this is a read and write REST API that allows your real-time bidding application to access and update information and submit creatives. So basically you can resubmit creatives, check the status of a submitted creative, and then retrieve a list of active creatives as well. And as discussed earlier, it's really important to get your creatives reviewed and approved prior to turning your campaign live or running your new creatives. You can submit your creatives to the Creative API and also retrieve the status of your snippets at any time. Moving on to another one, but that we're asked quite frequently, how do I check for SSL compliance? So I mentioned that earlier as well. We have a tool in the UI, and it's called the Creative Validator tool. And this basically allows you, so it's found in the bidding tab on the left-hand navigation, and you'll see Creative Validator. And this basically, two simple steps. You copy and paste your ad tag into the tool, and then click Scan Creative, and then you view the result. The result would either be compliant, partial, or non-compliant. So the compliant means the tool did not detect any non-secure calls. Partial, some calls were detected, were secure, but others were not secure. And non-compliant means all the calls detected were not secure. So this is a really, really good tool to check for SSL compliancy. And you can actually also use RTP breakout. So under RTP breakout, you can, for the disapproval reason, if it says rich media capability non-SSL, that basically means it's not SSL compliant. And that will come up on any bids that have been filtered out of auction. Okay, so here's a list, a quick summary list, if you wanted to refer back to that. So we're going to go into the Q&A part now. So if you had any questions from before, please do submit them in and we will take them. So I'll give you maybe about 30 seconds to submit your questions in. So while you submit your questions in, just some key takeaways. Please do read through our policies and new policies to get familiar. So I didn't cover all of the AdExchange policies, but they can be found on the AdExchange program guidelines, and there's also a section of policy updates. Then ensure you're not violating policies that have a severe enforcement model, so the egregious violations, and that can be found in the platform product policies, which is just a subsection of the first program guideline page. And then check creative status and submit your creatives beforehand so you can use the tools that we've just been through. So use Creative Explorer, RTP Breakout, and Creative REST API. Okay, so I don't think there are any questions. So hopefully everything was really clear. So I think we can wrap up. So thanks everyone for joining today's training. I hope you found it really useful and you got a good refresher of the existing policies as well as the new policy updates and some handy tips for troubleshooting. So thanks so much, Andrea, Elizabeth, and Kim for joining the call, and see you next time on a training. Bye everyone.